Hello everybody, it's Vertical Sandwich. Welcome back to Book Reviews. Okay, today I'm really excited. This is Stand on Zanzibar by John Brunner. Now, Stand on Zanzibar, there's a lot going on. It was the 1969 Hugo Award winner. And I should say this, if you don't want to read every Hugo Award winner, like I'm doing, what you should do is read the list from the 60s. Because the list from the 60s is amazing. It has Dune in it, it has Lord of Light in it, and it has this. And this book kind of started it all for me. Like, this was the first science fiction book I think I read where I went, oh man, this is just literature. Like, this is as literature as Faulkner or, or the like, Fitzgerald and Hemingway. And, okay, so like, and ironically, I borrowed the copy I read, so I just bought this copy, and it's the last Hugo Award winner I had to buy. So now I own them all. There's 69 of them. I own every one of them. Now, that being said, let's dive in. Okay, originally published in 1968, Stand on Zanzibar was a breakthrough in science fiction storytelling technique and a prophetic look at a dystopian 2010 that remains compelling today. Corporations have usurped democracy. Ubiquitous information technology mediates human relationships. Mass-marketed psychosomatic drugs keep billions docile, and genetic engineering is routine. Universal in reach, the world system is out of control, and we are all its victims and its creator. Okay, so this novel has just an amazingly bizarre flow to it, and by that I mean it's almost schizophrenic in the way it jumps around and tells things from different characters' points of views. And famously, there's just a listing of population statistics in it and things. But it follows the lives of, there are various peripheral characters, but the life of a high-ranking executive in a giant corporation, whose roommate is a covert operative for the U.S. government. And their kind of mutual interest in kind of world politics and these things that go on, how this executive is enlisted by his company to kind of broker like resource rights in this small nation, and then this guy is sent to the spy is sent to investigate a genetics breakthrough in a tiny country, like I believe a Southeast Asian country. Both are fictional countries, but and then the world that exists have created these kind of super psychotic human beings. Like they break from reality and become these kind of super destructive forces. And I mean, they don't look different. They're just like people go nuts and become incredibly homicidally violent because of kind of the artificial reality, the artificial nature of the society in which they live. So, those things being said, let's read a rather, there's no way to get a chapter that's in context for this. Like, this novel goes everywhere. So, this is chapter 4, Tracking with Close-Ups 4, Masquerade. Conscious that she was a walking advertisement for her own processes, conscious that not even the brilliant lights of the video technicians would reveal a flaw in her cosmetic garb, conscious with particular pleasure of the fact that the woman they had sent to interview her was conspicuously less well turned out, Genevieve Steele cooed at the microphone. Why the success of my boutiques is due to two factors: the ability of my customers to recognize who does and who doesn't keep that quantum jump ahead of transient fashions, and equally their ability to judge what does and what does not offer real value for money. She preened. Indeterminably aged, she wore a blousette of shimmering yellow because her complexion was in the Goya-esque tan range. It molded her bosom into almost perfect cycloidal curves, peaked on either side with a pair of her own remote-controlled nippy caps. Activated the moment because they would show to excellent advantage on a video screen. They were always at the wearer's disposal. Should she be interested in the man or woman she was talking to, she could dilate them without doing more than press her arm to her side. Conversely, she could deflate them, and there were few more ego-undermining things a woman could do to a block, than let it be seen how her erogenous tissue lost interest. She wore a skirtlet that was no more than an overgrown belt because she had extremely graceful legs. They tapered to jeweled slippers because she had high, springy arches, but not to bare feet because those arches had been reconstructed, and on the left foot one of the scars still showed. She had her hair in 4 parallel rolls, dyed silver. Her finger and toenails were chromed more brilliantly than mirrors, and flashed back the light of the lamps at the camera's lens. About 70% of her skin was revealed, but none of it was bare, except perhaps among the roots of her hair. Apart from the pearly masking on her face, she wore whole body matting, a personal blend of her own boutique skin tinter, and altogether nearly 30 other products which left a detectable deposit on the epidermis. As a final touch, her surface veins had been delicately traced in blue. "Why, I think it's contemporary in the way it ought to be," she told the microphone. "We don't live in the world of our ancestors where dirt and disease and what one might call general randomness dictated how we lived. No, we have taken control of our entire environment, and what we choose by way of fashion and cosmetics matches that achievement." "But the current trend towards a more natural look," the interviewer ventured. "What counts is how the person looking at you is affected," Genevieve said complacently. "It affects you too, of course, to be totally confident, as we make our clients, of the impression you're going to create is the only thing that really matters." "Thank you, Miss Steele," the interviewer murmured. That much out of the way, Guinevere marched back into her private office. With the door safely shut, she could drop into her chair and let the bitterness leak out into the set of her mouth, the narrowness of her eyes. Lighting a bay gold, she stared at her reflection. Totally confident in this business, where tomorrow the man in the case, or the girlfriend, whichever, might decide to get to closer quarters. The more elaborate and fragile and lovely the cosmetic job, the greater the effect, and the worse the letdown when it had been kissed and caressed and wrestled with. There were 17 boutiques now, one for every year she had been in the business, each licensed after careful appraisal to a manager who had to have worked for 3 months directly under Genevieve herself, who was trained to exacting standards, and had contracted to pay a fat commission for the privilege of using the name. Every rational precaution had been taken, but who should know better than a cosmetician that human beings are less than rational creatures? Got to distract myself. Got to have some new ideas. She thought for a while. Eventually she scribbled a list and reached for the switch on the phone, after another quick glance at herself to make sure the image on the screen would be fitting. A forfeits party. Always a good way to make other people look small. And at the head of the list, that haughty brown-nosed Norman House, which meant having his dismal roomie along, plus everyone else who had failed to fall down and worship lately. Forfeits for what? 20th century, how about that? Ancient Rome or somewhere a bit more exciting would be better, but that was the sort of area where you'd expect people like that drecky Donald Hogan to know more than the organizers about what was and what wasn't correct for the period. Hire a professional arbitrator, some nose-in-book student maybe specializing. No, I tried that once, didn't work. Glummy boy was shocked by some of the forfeits and caved in. Correction, avoiding forfeit. Chickened in, not that either. Out, up, check a dictionary of 20th century usage. Oh, if let's say Mel Ladbrokes could be persuaded to come and bring some of that fascinating new stuff they're experimenting with at the hospital. With a sort of savage delight, she stabbed at the buttons of the phone. You say one word, make one gesture even that's not in the context, and I'm going to make you piss your pants, you horrible black bastard. Okay, so clearly the idea is that this woman is completely fake. She runs a bunch of boutiques that make people kind of fake-ish. She throws parties, and there's this whole social element. She really wants to hurt Norman House, who is one of the main characters. The other guy, Donald Hogan, is his roommate, who is the spy. And, yeah, so, and there is an echo of kind of the world we live in and kind of this whole thing about the way people look and being judged by how they look. And not that that isn't universal across time and wasn't true in the 60s. It was. But, yeah, this book is masterful. You really, if you can't get into a book that kind of fills itself with fake slang, like whenever they refer to PM, they refer to it as Papa Mama. It's not a thing anybody would ever make up. It's not a slang that would ever fall into use, but it's fun in the context of this book. That being said, this book is devastatingly psychologically destructive. It's beautiful in kind of the way it treats people and the way it destroys some and the way it elevates others and kind of the prices people pay for what they are. And yeah, there's actually a line in Among Others where she's talking about this novel and she says, I wonder what it feels like to be John Brunner and have written your masterpiece first. And this is a masterpiece. I mean, like, this book captivated me in a way that very few other science fiction books did. And when you read it, it's another one of those things where you read it and you go, oh, clearly this won in the 80s. And then you look and you go, oh, man, was that ahead of its time. Everything about this is very not 1960s sci-fi. It's very 1980s sci-fi. This really could go hand in hand with something like Neuromancer, which we will talk about later. I've actually already recorded a review for Neuromancer, but I ended up deleting it when I switched cameras. But, yeah, and so you read this, and if you can have an appreciation of when this was written, I mean, you're gonna just be blown away by it. But even if you can't, this holds up perfectly. Like, you read this, and it could have been written. This also could go hand in hand with something like The Diamond Age or The Wind-Up Girl. The difference is this came first by a lot. Like, this is just a groundbreaking, new path trotting piece of just genius. And I think you'll really like it. I mean, I think if you have any appreciation for kind of the craft of literature, I think you will really like this book. Even if you're not a big science fiction fan, I think this will really get your attention. I love this. This is one of the reasons I'm doing this, is because you find books like this and you go, oh, this won a Hugo Award. I wonder what else won a Hugo Award. Will I run into other books like this? And the answer is yes. Yes, you will. The difference is, what I'm starting to realize is, you run into one of these, and you'll run into 5 years later, something else groundbreaking in another way will win. Some of those you will like, and some of those you won't. But this I love. I absolutely love this book. I think it's just fantastic. And just, like I said, a lot of fun. I think it's light years ahead of where it should have been. I'm glad it won an award. I'm glad it was one of the first Hugo Award winners that I read. I really liked it. Now, as far as, is it a happy book? No, it's not. It's a bleak dystopian novel. But dystopian novels are a tradition in science fiction. Like some of the greatest, Brave New World, 1984. Stand on Zanzibar. Stand on Zanzibar by John Brunner. Amazing book. Amazing book. I cannot more highly recommend this. At the end of this, I was thinking about talking about the Hugo Award winners that I think are the best ones, the ones that I think are the worst ones. And this is going in the best ones list. Like, it's going to have to. It's going to go up there with, like, Lord of Light, which won, like, a year before this. And, like, Dune and stuff. All from the 60s. So, yeah, read Stand on Zanzibar. If you've never heard of this book, or you've never picked it up, just read this. This is great. If you watched my first review of Lord of Light and was like, I liked Lord of Light, read Stand on Zanzibar. Like, they're not the same novel. They're not even similar. But they're of equal kind of genius and quality and interest. This book was amazing. This book is absolutely amazing. So that's my review. When we come back, we'll be talking about something else. And I will see you for that. Bye, everybody.